1078 Officer in need.
What's up, guys? It's Matt from the 1078 Project. Hey, if you're new to the organization, a little bit about us. The 1078 Project is a non-profit organization that's been founded and developed by law enforcement officers who have been involved in critical incidents and officer-involved shootings. Our goal at the 1078 Project is to provide mental, spiritual, and practical support to law enforcement officers as they navigate the difficult times surrounding an officer-involved shooting. With that being said, let's dive into today's episode, and I'll see you on the other side, boys. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest is my best friend. She's a neonatal intensive care nurse. She's the best mom that I know and the best wife that I know. Today's guest is my wife, Katelyn Frkovic.
Why do we not know what's coming?
Because it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, honestly and truthfully, everybody probably just avoids talking about it because it sucks. It's not a fun process. No cop wants to sit in an interview room and be interviewed by people that they could potentially work with. You know, like, I'm the good guy. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that does the interview. I'm not the guy sitting in the bad guy chair. And I was the guy sitting in the bad guy chair.
And to hear things like, you're under investigation. Like, what?
Yeah,
like you don't expect that.
Yeah,
you don't
I
think
shouldn't be
about
under
that
investigation because I did everything that I was taught to do. I literally did. Like, the textbook answer was what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just that whole part of not understanding exactly what's happening and why it's happening. And, you know, just this, there's so many uncertainties. Like, did this affect my relationship with God? What does my wife think about me? Like, is she going to look at me differently because, you know,
I had to do.
Yeah. Like I killed someone. Like, oh, what is my church going to think about me or my peers? Or
I remember, so it happened, your shooting was the weekend before Thanksgiving, and you had so much stress and anxiety about going to Thanksgiving. And like, is everybody going to be looking at me weird now? Like, are people going to ask me about it? Like, you just didn't even want to go to Thanksgiving. You were just so worried about people viewing you differently. And you were like, I'm still Matt. Like, I remember you saying that, like, I'm Matt. Like, I don't want people to look at me different now. And, you know, that's an important
It's
thing
not
to
so
consider.
much in the law enforcement world. Like, we all look at each other the same because we all know,
Yeah,
you know, like
no,
that's a
but
potential.
with your
that's
family,
like a
with your
likelihood.
friends, like, this was not something that was
like my grandma. Like, what does my grandma think about?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to have to look at my grandma and she's like, oh my God. Like, that's Matt.
I don't know
like,
what he did last weekend.
Yeah.
You know,
like, I was just nervous that everybody's going to be like poking and prodding and asking all these questions. And like, these are, again, things that you're never prepared for. Nobody ever talks about. Nobody ever teaches you how to navigate any of these things. And it was just uncomfortable. You know, it's like a weird position to be in.
So then fast forward almost a year, we're on vacation.
We never talked about the anxiety thing.
I got the sense you didn't want to. I kept trying to push you to talk about it, and you kept talking about other things.
I'm fine. I don't care.
So that night,
I'm an open book, man. I tell my story as honestly and as genuinely as I can because I don't know what somebody will take from it. But I think it was night 2. I don't think it was the first night.
I am pretty certain.
I think it was night 2, but because I'm pretty sure it was night 2. It was either night 2 or night 3, but so we're about to argue on camera. But there's one night where I laid down in bed and I was like super itchy. Like, I couldn't stop. Like, my whole body was itchy and I was like freaking out. And like, this is going to sound so bad, but I have sensitive skin. And if we use like certain laundry detergent or something, like
That's never happened.
I'm just saying, like, if I did, I would think that since I have sensitive skin, I would think that it would react a certain way. My skin would react a certain way. But so one night, like, laying down in bed and I'm super itchy and I'm like, start freaking out. I can't control like how bad I'm like itching. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, so again, my first thought was like, okay,
it must have been my wife.
Must have did something here. Like, this is so irrational. Why would this happen? And I'm like, did you change something? Like, did you change like the conditioner, or did you change like the soap, or did you change the laundry detergent?
Listing off everything in our house. Like, did you change this? Did you change that?
I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, my whole body's like covered in hives.
You're like literally freaking out in bed next to me, like yelling at me about this. And I'm like, I didn't change anything. Nothing's new. And you're like, it must be. Like, you were just like so dead set that I did something to make you itchy.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I didn't change the laundry detergent. And you were like, you must have.
I thought you did, man. I really did.
But that just shows like how you were still like in that, just like you were overwhelmed, you know?
Yeah. The long and the short of it is we've come to the conclusion that it was like a physiological reaction from me being super anxious as I broke out in hives. So
that was one of my favorite moments. And I mean that in the kindest way.
It's not kind at all.
But you're sitting there and you're like, look, and you're like, I'm lifting up your shirt and you're covered in a rash. And I was like,
I was just trying to get you to touch me.
of course. I was like, babe, you're having a reaction to your anxiety. You're having like a systemic reaction to your anxiety. Like you're breaking out in a rash because your anxiety is so high right now. And you were like, no. And I was like, 100%, that's what's happening right now. And you were like, that can happen? And I'm like, yes, and it's happening right now.
And to be 100% honest, I really didn't feel like super duper anxious.
You're like, I'm not even that anxious right now. I remember you like saying that, like.
I felt
and I'm
anxious.
Like,
I felt more anxious than I normally did, obviously, because I just went through this thing, but I didn't feel like super anxious.
In your mind, you were like, well, I was super anxious the night before. I was super anxious earlier today. Like right now, I'm not as anxious as I have been. So in your mind, you were like, no, like it doesn't track right that I'm like breaking out in a rash now. Yeah. And that's not how it works.
Yeah, there were like two moments.
It kind of just pop up.
There were two moments when that I really think, you know, I could see how somebody may slip down, like how without the proper resources, being in one of these incidents can be pretty dangerous.
For sure.
That moment. And then when I was driving to, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but when I was driving to the interview, like driving and I'm like, I hope this goes well. Like, you know, like it should go well, right? Like everything's fine. Like I did exactly what I was supposed to do, but everything that my attorney was telling me is like still stuck in my head. And like I was freaking out about it. And like, it was like the only fainting, like, I don't want to say suicidal thought, but like somewhat suicidal thought that I had during the whole process was like, well, what if this doesn't go well? And I was like, well, I'll just end it. And I was like, oh. And I like caught myself thinking that. I was like, what are you doing? Like,
that's
like
so
the
scary.
logical
Those,
part
like,
of my brain was like,
those are like, I think it's called like passive suicidal, like, or passive intrusive, like suicidal ideations.
it was like a quick second where I was like, we should just end it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like there's no, like, that's not me. Like, why would, like, that's not who I am as a person. I would never do that. Like, why would that happen? But it was like, those are the two moments that I had during the whole incident where I could see how that's like a slippery slope. And
yeah, I don't think you ever told me that.
And again, it's like, probably because of your brother, but again, it's like those, like I would never commit suicide. That's not who I am. I would never do that.
I mean, that's not how it works.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I understand what you're saying as well, but
be more smart than that.
I know, but I'm just like using that as like a way of explaining. But
to you in that moment, you were like,
I was like,
I would never do this.
Yeah,
like, why am I having this thought? That's not
what's
me.
happening?
Yeah.
Like, why am I even thinking that? It makes no sense. And it honestly was a little scary. You know, it was like,
it's very scary.
I was like, dude, okay, I need to like really make sure I'm taking care of myself because that's not who I am. I don't think like that. This is completely irrational for me. Like, I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself. And, you know, I keep saying there were some big fundamental places where I was like, we need to do something in the future about this. Like, we need to make sure guys are protected. And that was another one of those moments where I was like, okay. Like, because I think the weirdest thing is, you kind of touched on it earlier, is like, I had life by the butt. Like, I had everything going great. I had a wife who's fantastic. I have a church community who's awesome. I have a relationship with Jesus that's like great. I have a department that I work for that's really good. I have a pretty clean cut shooting. Like, I hate to use the word clean cut shootings, but it was a very like, it's very, cut and dry. There wasn't anything that was like too squirrely about the whole situation. I had an attorney present. I had all these things like together, like, and for me to like have moments where I felt uncomfortable or like times where I felt vulnerable or whatever, I was like, man, I have life by the butt. I have all these things in line. Like I started thinking about,
I could see where somebody who doesn't have everything else in life in order.
Maybe their relationship with their wife isn't the greatest. Maybe they have an alcohol addiction. Maybe their work history isn't the best. Maybe their shooting is not as clear cut. They don't have a relationship
with God.
Maybe they don't have, and it started to like dawn on me.
Add a critical incident on top of that, and it's like now you have the perfect storm, and who knows what state of mind this officer is going to be in.
Yeah, and we're big on like, we want to end police suicide, but we're also big on we want to end guys destroying their own lives. Destroying their marriages, destroying their relationships.
End the stigmas and everything, and end police suicide. And we want to like work towards like overall
building
officer
overall
wellness.
Healthy policeman, a good strong life at home, a good strong relationship with their kids, whatever faith system that they choose, that they have a strong faith system. Like those are the things that we're working to. It's not just stopping guys from committing suicide. Yeah, that's a big part of it, but it's not the only reason why we do this.
Yeah. So it's almost a year after your shooting, and you, like, I would say for most of that year, you were just off. Like, to me, like, you were normal. Like, you got back to normal life and stuff, but it just, something seemed, like, unsettled in you. Like, it seemed like you were just, like, looking for something to fill a void, or you had to do something.
I think I was a little unhappy with who I was prior to the shooting, to be 100% like
so
honest.
It was very obvious to me that there was something about you that was unsettled. And we're on vacation, and we're with really great friends, really
Shout out Dad Tired.
Mr. and Mrs. Dad Tired.
Yeah.
Jared's super good influence on you, like great guy, somebody you love to be around, and you always feel really comfortable, like, kind of sharing your heart with him. And then same for me with Layla. And we're just kind of, like, sharing with them our unsettledness. And we're kind of, like, working. We're supposed to be on vacation, and we're, like, actually in the middle of a midlife crisis. And the whole vacation, we're, like, kind of, like, down in the dumps. And then
I don't know if down in the dumps.
I mean, a little bit. Right. Like,
I truly felt like we just felt like something. I felt like we were being called to something the whole time. Like I think using the term unsettled kind of sounds like, oh, I wasn't the same person. And it's not that. It's just I felt like something greater needed to happen, if that makes sense. Like I felt like I was being called to do something like the experiences that I've had through my life.
You were like, I need to do something with
pushing
this.
me in this direction. And I keep saying, like, I kept noticing these times through my, like, recovery and through, like, the days, like, right after my shooting where I was like, man, I'm doing really well. Like, I have a really good life. And, like, and mentally I was doing fairly well recovering, like, for all things aside, like looking from an outside perspective, I was doing well, and I didn't feel like I had a lot of mental health things going on, but I just felt like I started feeling like, man, I can only imagine if it wasn't that way. And that carried on with me for a long time. It wasn't just like I had that feeling of like I want to help other dudes that are going through things like this for like a week, and it was like, okay, it was like a fading thought. It was like,
I think that's something that like
it grew every week that went by,
bonds us together. Like our hearts are so like we have wildly different personalities.
Yeah, I'm cool and
I'm nice. So yeah, we're like super different personalities, but like our hearts, like our souls are very similar.
Yeah.
And that's what like bonds us together is like we both have like these like serving hearts. And we're always thinking about others. And I think for both of us, like we didn't have a lot of conversations about it, but I think both of us were thinking in that year afterwards, like, you know, for me, like the incident with or not incident, but that moment with my boss, that kept replaying to me like, man, not everybody has a boss like that. And like, not everybody that goes through what we went through is going to have a situation like that at work where they're going to be met with like grace and kindness and be told, go be with your family, go put your family first.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always going to happen. And so like, you know, we were both like on the same page thinking about like, what is everybody else going through that goes through this, and how, you know, we had it pretty good, and what is happening for the people that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were just like, we should do something about that.
Yeah, we talked about it like quite a bit before we left for vacation. It was something that like we had started discussing, like, hey, I feel like we should do something with this.
Well, like, you wanted to.
Like, should I do really like ministry or like what should I be doing with myself?
I didn't really feel like I need to do something. I mean, I thought about people like, you know, other people that were going through that too, but I didn't feel like I have to do something about it until that day we were on vacation. But you had been for a while. You were talking about like, should I go in ministry? You were talking about like, should I start a podcast? And I was like, you're not starting a podcast.
Look at that.
But like, that was the extent of it. You're like, I want to start a police podcast. And I was like, no, that's dumb.
A year later, she's sitting on it.
So, yeah. So you have all these ideas and you're like looking for a way to like do something with this bad thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on vacation. We had been talking to Jared and Layla about, you know, you're looking for something to do, and you and Jared are kind of talking about podcasts and stuff. And then we go out to breakfast one morning, and it was like
the French bakery.
So good.
It was good.
So good.
In Hilton Head, South Carolina, is delicious.
Shout out Hilton Head.
Yeah.
And it was another one of those like divine intervention moments, like a God moment, whatever you want to call it. Like, I have no other explanation for it, but like God just like,
it was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, it was like all of a sudden I'm like, hey, what if we start an organization that helps and serves and goes to people when they're in a critical incident or a shooting, and we go to their house and we just support them. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but we'll go and we'll be there because we've been through it. And if you want to start a podcast that talks about officer involved shootings and like what to expect, because like we didn't know what to expect, and like what if we help other people know what to expect, and we bring this information to them and we just help people. And that was like, it was like one of those moments where like, this was not my idea. Like, I don't know where this just came from, but all of a sudden I'm just like spewing this to you. And it was like, to me, it was very obvious, like, this is what God wants us to do.
Yeah, it was like ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Like, it felt very much like, hey, I'm sending you to go do this. Here you go. Like, you've been prepared, and this is what you're supposed to do now.
God gave you that idea just so you could hold it above my head for the next 30 years.
You had the idea for the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you this, and you're like, I mean, the look on your face was just like, it was like Christmas morning to you. You were just like, this is what I've been looking for. Like, this is the answer. Like, this is what we're going to do. And you just like hit the ground running.
I mean, yeah. For people that don't know.
Cry.
What'd you say?
I said, I love it when you cry.
I'm not crying.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. But for people that don't know me, like, I'm the type of guy when my heart is in something, there's nothing that's going to like stand in my way. Like, I'm going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until I either fall over dead or whatever I want to happen happens. And from that moment, I feel like that's what happened. Like, we got back to Jared and Layla's house, and we like sat there and we talked for like what seemed like forever, and we like started laying out all these things and had
they
all
were
these
like,
ideas.
"You
They were
guys
like
should
snowballing.
do this,"
Yeah.
and
They came up with I want to say, was it Layla that came up with the name maybe? I can't remember.
she was definitely like
Yeah. She's a
sending
name
us all
lady.
these names. Like, they helped us so much, for sure.
They're great people.
And we all just started bouncing ideas off of like what it would look like to go help people and respond to them, and like, and that's where it all started. That's how, and we came home from that vacation, and I remember like went to the store and we like got a notebook and we got highlighters and pens, and then
that was all her idea.
I was like, we need pens, all colored pens, and a notebook.
Yeah, you wrote something in the notebook that I read like a week ago, and it was like,
every time I see that, it's like always a time when it's like you need to see that. So at the front page of the notebook, I wrote, "Don't dig up and doubt what you planted in faith."
Yeah, sometimes.
And I remember I was like, we're gonna need to see this. Like, we're gonna need to be reminded of this.
Yeah, for everybody that thinks that this just happens and it's just a success overnight, and there's not thousands of man hours that go into it, I challenge you to come to my house for one day and follow me around as I run around like a chicken with my head cut off for 14, 15 hours of that day.
So worth it, though.
Yeah, it definitely is. But seeing that,
it's not easy by any means, and it's hard, and there have been for sure days where we've been like,
we fought more about 1078 than we fought about anything else in our entire marriage.
For sure.
Like there's
not
necessarily about 1078, but about my inability to set certain boundaries, and I go 24/7.
Well, the other thing that came up too was I'm constantly, I will forever be dealing with the loss of my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I have good years and I have bad years, and I have good months and I have bad months. Sometimes I'll have a string of bad months. And it just so happens that in this year of starting 1078, the 5-year anniversary of losing Brennan came up. And I didn't expect for it to be so hard, but I spiraled at that time.
I don't think you spiraled. I think you're being really tough on yourself. I don't think you spiraled. I think
to me it seemed like it.
I think that this is the most productive you've ever been with dealing with it. Your like grief and all of the,
I mean, a lot of that is due to 1078. Like, we've learned so much.
What I'm saying is like you felt like you were spiraling because you were working so hard on yourself.
Yeah. It gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and you're like working and working and working and working and working, and you know, you see one of the 1078 counselors who is, I love that lady so much, but she's like taken a vested interest in you, and it's been, I hate for you to say that about yourself, like you've been spiraling out of control. It bothers me when you say things like that, but you've been working really hard on like fixing a lot of underlying things, and a lot of the ways that you have been.
I'm trying to heal.
Yeah, and
that's hard work.
Yeah,
like
and it's been really hard work.
Face a trauma head on and be like, I got to work through this. A lot of people self-medicate,
digs up,
or just bury it down.
A lot of bad feelings.
I can't do that.
Like, I think that was the thing when you say you're spiraling out of control. I think that's the misconception that you're telling yourself, is that you weren't spiraling out of control. You were taking leaps and bounds forward, but to take those leaps and bounds, you were also having to take a lot of steps backwards and dig up things that you had buried. Mm-hmm. And those things sort of reared their head some other way, years down the road. You know what I mean? Like, instead of just covering them up and just moving on, you actually dealt with them. And I think it was difficult for you to deal with them. But now, looking at how far you've come over the last year, you're so much further down the road, you know, than you ever would have been if you just would have kept throwing stuff on top of it. And honestly, it's like watching you go through that process was a big reason why I started going to therapy, and like why I was like, we need to do 1078. We need to push 1078 even harder, because I've seen this like miraculous growth in you. Like, so many things have changed, and you're the reason why I did EMDR for the first time. Like, it's been a lot of the behind the scenes has come from watching your whole journey.
Well, I just think that
Now you might make me cry, but before I wasn't.
I don't know. Like, it's just one of the things you don't realize it when you're going through something really hard. And it's just a testament to, like, our faith that, like, God's always there. And when we don't see it, he's preparing us for something. And that, you know, verse that, oh, I just left my mind. You get me all flustered. Just that good things come out of bad things. Like, God will use something bad and do something good with it. You know, like we 100% live in a broken, fallen world, and that sucks. But you can choose to, like, see God work.
Yeah.
And bring something good out of something, like, bad. And he promises that he will.
I've always been that person that, you said it earlier, that when something bad happens, I'm always like, okay, well, what good can come from this? And this is a way bigger example than anything I would ever expect for myself. But
it's just crazy that, like, when Brendan first died, it was like, my mindset was, nothing good could ever come of this. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. And the rest of my life is going to be horrible now because this horrible thing happened and there's no way to move past it. And now here we are 5 years later, and you never would be here with 1078 caring about police suicide, caring about mental health, had we not gone through that whole journey after losing Brendan. And you grew empathy, you grew a heart for that. Yeah, you were angry at my brother, but, like, you also really loved him. And working through that for you, and then me working through all of that and overcoming a lot of things that I went through. Now here we are in the perfect place. Yeah. To be able to serve other people and use all of that we went through.
Yeah, I say this all the time, but the shooting was the worst, best thing to ever happen to me. Like, it changed so much about myself. I'm like a reform tool, you know, like, just the way that I look at the world and the way that I look at other people has changed a lot. The way that I look at myself, the type of person that I want to be, like, you know, when bullets start flying, you start thinking about, like, hey, if things would have went sideways, would I be happy with the person that I was if one of those would have hit me in the face or something? Would I be happy with the person that I was if it all ended today? And I just wasn't. You know, I wasn't happy with who I was. Sorry to interrupt the episode, but we got some big, exciting things happening with 1078. As you guys know, we sell merch, and that's been going pretty well. We decided to drop 2 more T-shirts, one of which I think you guys will think is hilarious. Head over to the website, www.1078project.com. Click the merch button. It will take you to our merch store where you can purchase a shirt. Just so you guys know, all the proceeds from those shirts, all the profits from those shirts are getting donated back to the nonprofit, and it's a way for us to continue to do the work that we have been doing. Also, we have big news as well. We're having a trivia night. It's on 9/20. If you're looking to attend the trivia night, again, go to the website, www.1078project.com. Go to the events tab, and you can register. All the information that you'll need is there. Guys, this is a really big deal to us. This is the way that we fund all of our operations. If you're a business, you're looking to sponsor the trivia night, again, you can reach out to us, or you can go to the website, to the event tab. All of our contact information will be on there. Hit us up. We'd love to have your support. We've also loved to have you guys at the trivia night. I'll stop talking so we can get back to the episode. Take it away. No,
that's what I am talking about. Like, I could tell, like, and I knew that, like, and you kept saying that, like, that was a big deal to you. You kept thinking about, like, what if I hadn't came out on the other side of that? And you know, what's the legacy I would have left behind? And, like, what would people have remembered me for? And it's like, that's not what I want to be about.
Yeah.
And
You don't
I
have to
think
be
now you're doing something that you are okay with. Like, if something happens to you, you're like,
yeah, I feel like I'm
I'm who
doing what
I'm
God has called
supposed
me,
to be,
what
yeah.
God has called me to do. Like,
Yeah.
not necessarily who I'm supposed to be, but what God wants me to
Yeah.
be. You know, like I've completely surrendered to the idea.
Yeah, you're not like who you want to be. You
like,
you are submitting to God.
This is hard.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, and it's not easy, and sometimes it sucks. A lot of times it sucks, to be 100% honest. Like, operating on limited sleep for both of us is really difficult. You slept 4 hours today before I had to go to a meeting. It's like, it's not always like, if it's not sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's grueling at times, and it's frustrating at times, and we get angry with each other at times. But like, this is where I feel like God has called us. Like, this is where I feel this is my mission field, if that makes sense. Like, this is my ministry. Like, God was calling me to ministry. I just didn't know how.
In what capacity?
Yeah. Like, I didn't really want to be a pastor. You know, I didn't want to stand in front of a church and like tell a sermon. But all of these things have aligned between Brendan and my work experience and everything that I've done, and then my shooting and all this other stuff. And, you know, even as something as simple as meeting Jared at stinking youth camp, like, when those paths crossing and him being able to kind of like guide this mission a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like God was aligning all those things before I ever even realized that he was, you know?
Yeah. It's just, it's really wild, like, how everything has fallen into place. And, you know, here we are a year later after starting 1078, and how far we've come, and we're still like constantly thinking of what we need to do better and how we can grow and serve people better. And I think we're well on our way.
Yeah.
And
with a little bit more funding, this thing will be fantastic.
Said every nonprofit ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes funding for sure, but it takes hard work more than anything, and staying committed to it.
That's something that I'm good at.
Yeah, you're a super committed person.
Yeah, if you give me a task.
But like, we've already seen, you know, in the first year of being up and running, how many?
It'll be 36 by the end of the week.
36 officers and families that we've served, and
as far as from Missouri to Stockton, California.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is wild. It's like little Jesus seeds being planted all over the place.
Well, and like,
we don't make it's not like an overtly like.
Yeah, we're not like.
Yeah.
You gotta we're bringing.
Find Jesus.
Yeah,
this.
like, we are not shy about our faith. Like, we're gonna, if we can pray for you, if you're comfortable with that, we are gonna do that. If you want us to pray for you, we are gonna do that. If you're not about that stuff,
it's all right too.
That's totally fine with us. We're still gonna serve you, and we have so much to offer.
Like real practical resources that are beneficial.
And like, obviously one of the most important things to us is like bringing Jesus, like the love of Jesus, to people. If other people aren't, you know, that's not the most important thing to them at that time, we got flowers.
Yeah.
No, seriously though, like, I mean, we have just developed so much. We looked at what we went through at every angle, and we were like, we have to have law enforcement competent counselors. Like, that was a big deal.
That's the biggest deal.
Having, you know, a big deal to you was, I have got to make sure that people know what to expect. Mm-hmm. What is their mind and body going to go through after a shooting? Like, and I mean, I haven't heard if anybody has given you feedback about that, but to me, that sounds like that would make such a big difference. To the day after or the day of, you go through a shooting and somebody's coming to you and being like, here's this packet, and it's going to tell you everything you need to know. And to see, like, you might experience this, and this, and that's normal. So that way, when you're experiencing that, you're not sitting there like you were, like, what is happening to me?
Yeah, why
you're
am
like,
I losing control of myself?
Yeah, you're like, okay, I was prepared for this. Mm-hmm. I think that's just like the biggest thing to me. Is
we want to
like,
be in control. At the end of the day, that's like, you want to be in control. You want to know what to expect.
And I think I remember going on like one of our first ones, you know, our first, I don't know what you call it, first time we went to serve an officer, and being like, we want to make sure that, you know, officers they play a critical role in our communities. And me personally, as a member of the community, I have children, I have a husband, I have family that I care about living in this community. I want to make sure that officers are being supported and they are going to be well when they go back to work.
And I think that's
that we're not just like, this is your job, deal with it and go back to work.
Yeah.
But you're not in a good place.
I think that's something like a lot of people, like maybe that aren't necessarily pro police, may look at our nonprofit and be like, oh, screw them, they're helping these guys, or, you know, like,
I think that's something I said from the beginning. I was like,
community goal?
How could you not get behind this?
Isn't that the overall community goal?
If you don't like the police and you're like, defund the police, or they need more training.
Criminal justice reform.
Yeah, it's like, hello, we're trying to like make sure that officers are mentally stable and well and supported, and that they're going to be the best version of themselves when they go back to work, or even before.
Like they have strong relationships with their family. They have strong relationships with whatever their faith may be. They're in a good mental place to go back to work. They're in a good physical place to go back to work. Isn't that what society wants?
Right.
Like, so you may be super anti-police.
No-brainer to me.
You may not like the police at all, and that's your own opinion, and I'm happy that we live in America, and I'm happy that you can have that opinion, because I promise you that I didn't know the people that I ran towards, and neither do any other cops, and they will come save you just like they save anybody else. And when that happens, there's going to be some baggage that comes around with that, and I want those guys to go back to work as better humans than when they left that day. So, again, you know, like, we get that a lot. Like, that's a lot. Sometimes that's why funding is difficult, is companies come to us and like, what about this or what about that? And like, how are people going to view this? And it's like, this is a win-win-win.
Yeah.
They win, we win, the public wins. Like, it's everybody. Like, everybody gets something out of this. I think, you know, if you're against it, the only reason why you're against it is just because you just want to be against it, really.
Yeah.
Let's go to the first time that we served somebody, because that was a huge moment for me, at least. Like, I remember walking in there and like looking into that dude's eyes and like seeing myself, and like,
you got emotional.
Yeah, I could see in his eyes. You know, you just seemed foggy. You just seemed like you weren't really like all there, and it was difficult for you to be in the moment. And I could see that in that dude's eyes. Like, I could see that he was just foggy and he was having difficulties being in the moment. And to see that in him, like, brought me back to like day one, you know? So, but that's my perspective. What's yours?
I mean, same thing, but like, I was looking at his wife.
Yeah.
And it was healing, I think, for us to do that first one.
Something called post-traumatic growth.
For sure, healing, to see it come full circle. And if we had never served anybody else, I think it still would have been so healing. Just to go and support that one officer and his wife. Like, make a really bad day just even a little bit better. Like, it felt good.
Yeah, it's not an end-all be-all, obviously. Like, we're not going to go there and just fix everything.
No, and, you know, we didn't change their life, but it's a bad day. You know, you're having a bad day when that happens. And for somebody to come and be like, here's some flowers.
Here's some food.
Here's some food.
Everybody heals over food.
I know. It's in the Bible.
I know. It is.
Here's, you know, like, the fact that we were talking about, like, I didn't have any PTO to get paid to take time off. And, you know, like, that wasn't a huge deal for us, but that was something we thought about. And, like, not everybody is going to be able to be like, honey, stay home with me for the week. Yeah. They can't.
Like, financially, they can't.
Yeah, financially, like, you can't afford that sometimes.
Or, like,
world's expensive.
If they're divorced, it's like, hey, it's my week with the kids, and the kids are going to be at the house. Like, all of us, most of us are parents, right? And how difficult is it sometimes to be a parent, even in a perfect world,
especially when you're dealing with.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
in a perfect world where you don't have all these things going on, and then now throw this and try and be a good dad or try and be a good mom, and it's really difficult. So if they're divorced, it's like, hey, here's some funds. Send your kid to a daycare for a couple days. And
Whatever you got to do. Like, it's like no strings attached. I mean, we literally have an envelope with money for whatever they need it for, you know, and the thought behind it was, you know, if you need to
the envelope
take time
says spend time with the people you love.
Yeah.
That's what the envelope says.
So you can make sure that you're supported, you're together as a family, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So we got, you know, we started thinking about like, okay, we were really distracted when this was happening, and our kids were just kind of there. And so we threw in Legos and some police coloring books, like something just proactive to do. Like, here, get, you know, maybe this will help facilitate a conversation with your kids about what's going on right now. Or just
your kids realize something weird's happening.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know.
Yeah.
If your kid's over 2, you know, they understand that something in their world is not the same, you know? So here's this little thing, make your day a little bit better, you know? Or, you know, like even to the gift cards with we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off. I have this meeting, I got to meet with the attorney, then I got to meet with this person.
I'm trying to like think about,
you don't want to spend time at home. So
we have to make meals. Like we have to eat. I didn't want to cook. I didn't want to like think about, I didn't have the space to think about how I was going to feed everybody and what was I going to make. Like, I wasn't thinking about that stuff. Yeah. And that's something, just one of those things. We just looked at everything we went through those first couple of days, and it's like, what was good, what was bad, what do we want to make sure that we do to help people? Like, what would have helped us, what did help us, what wasn't helpful, and I just packaged it all up, and now we deliver it around, you know? I mean, it's like not a big deal, but it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I don't know what it is. I just feel like we're supposed to be doing it. Yeah. You know, I really do. Like sometimes I think it makes a huge difference, and other times I'm like, am I wasting my time? Like, is this, you know, is it worth it or whatever? Like, am I, not necessarily when we deliver stuff, but, you know, in the times that we're not, and it's just the grind.
Oh, like hustle. In the middle. Yeah.
It's like, man, is this worth it? And then.
Yeah. But then every time a critical incident happens and like we're actually going and we're seeing those officers in need and their family sitting there, like not knowing what to do. It's like,
this is all worth it.
This is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember now.
Yeah. What else? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's our story, I think.
I think it's most of our story. I'm sure we missed a million things, but
I think we hit the big things.
It's important to me that the people that listen to the podcast get to meet, like, it's all just normally just me here talking to people, but there's a bunch of people that are behind the scenes, some of which have already been on the podcast, and we just never talked about it.
Well, and I just think it's good for, you know, if people are going to support us, like, they deserve to know
who we are,
and where this came from. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, honestly and truthfully, this came from a bunch of really bad experiences in our lives all aligning to make something really, really nice. You know, like,
taking the bad and doing something good.
Yeah. I just want you to know how much I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Like, I couldn't do it without you, and I'm thankful for you. And I know you got to put up with a lot of my nonsense.
You're doing strong work.
Yeah. I know you have to put up with all of the times that we don't necessarily get to spend together because I'm busy and we don't get to live out some of our dreams because of 1078. But I appreciate you sticking with me and staying on mission with me and not giving up on the idea whenever it gets really, really, really hard, because there have been times that it's gotten really hard.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it's gotten really hard. But I think something that always, like, keeps me going and pulls me back, because I know I'm a lot to deal with sometimes and I don't make it easy on you a lot. But, like, another full circle moment, you know, you stuck with me during my traumatic thing, and you doubled down and you committed when it was really hard. And when this happened, it was like, this is my turn and this is my opportunity to show the same commitment and to stick through you
I
when
just
it's
had
hard.
to make it huge. I had to make it a giant commitment and make it be a bunch of time and effort. And
A never-ending commitment.
yeah, we'll be doing 1078 when I'm 65 years old. Hopefully. Let's see.
Hopefully.
Let's see what God has in store.
I
What
hope
God
it
has planned.
continues on. I hope this is a legacy we can leave for our kids, and somebody, maybe Zeke, will keep doing it.
He can do this, but
Not maybe a police officer.
I don't think so. I don't know, man. We need great people to be police officers. And I will say that as my time as a policeman, I've met some of the best human beings that I've ever met in my entire life are cops.
It's an important part of our society. And as much as, I might hate your job sometimes, or like hate the anxiety it gives me. I know. But it's the truth. Hate thinking about when you don't answer your phone and you're at work, and I'm like, start planning your funeral, because that's just where my mind goes. Like, he's dead somewhere and I don't know where he wants to be buried. And,
Yeah, I was doing an interview like 2 weeks ago, and my dispatchers are calling me on the radio. It's like, your wife's on the phone. I'm like,
oh,
tell her I'm okay. Everything's fine. I'm just really busy.
That's horrible when that happens. Those are the moments. Yeah, I wake up and you're not home, and it's way past when you're supposed to be home. And I'm like, he's dead. He's dead. And
if I'm dead,
sucks.
somebody will meet you at the door, I promise.
I was checking the cameras on our phone. Like, there's a patrol car is going to pull in the driveway any second, and somebody's going to come up to the door. And I'm not answering it. I was like, I'm not answering the door.
So I'll tell you this. We've started a wives group that's led by another first responder. All the wives can go there and talk about things like this that I just can't understand.
It's important.
It's a place
have that support.
Yeah, it's a place for like you to
know that other people are going through this kind of stuff too. It's not normal.
In like this job, but I understand this job is hard on you. Like, I have no misconceptions that this is an easy job for you to be a wife of, but sometimes I don't want to hear how bad it sucks.
Well,
like,
you didn't let me finish though. Like,
no, all I'm saying is like, that's a place like that support group for wives is a place for you guys to like take some of that. Like,
it's some self-care for me as a law enforcement spouse.
Like, take it there.
Which
they
is
all understand you.
I didn't realize until I went to that, and I was like, this is important. Like, everybody should do this. Like, this is doing something good and that is needed. But I was going to say, as much as it is hard to be a law enforcement spouse, I could never ask you to not do it. I have made my peace with that. There were times where I was like, I'm just going to tell him I don't want him to be a cop anymore. And I'm glad that I never did, because it's important and you're a good one. And I tell people that all the time. Like, there's bad apples everywhere. There's bad doctors. There's bad nurses. There's bad cops.
I think as a law enforcement community, when we just say like, no, all cops are good, it's like kind of doing a disservice there. There are some bad cops out there, and like
we need
our body cameras that document all those bad things that bad cops do. But there's bad doctors, there's bad lawyers, there's bad plumbers. It's just not on the news every time they make a mistake, and it is whenever cops do.
Yeah, they're scrutinized a little too rough sometimes, but you're a good one, and I feel better for the community knowing that you're out there, like. And after Brendan died, and like how your perspective changed on suicide, and you would come home and be like, I went to a suicide call tonight and they didn't, I talked him out of it, or, I sat with somebody for an hour, 2 hours talking about life, and they wanted to kill themselves, and they changed their mind at the end of our conversation, like.
I feel like that's how I got to serve Brendan. Like, that was his legacy. It was like he didn't just disappear. Like, he wasn't just gone.
Yeah, you were able to tell his story and my story, and make an impact and do something positive with it. And those were the times that I was like, how selfish of me to not want him out there, like, helping people. Like, people need him and people need good officers. And, like, at the heart of 1078, like, that's what we want, is good officers out there.
Yeah.
Serving the community and not destroying their lives in the process.
Yeah, because unfortunately the job is hard.
It is.
You know, it's hard. You see a lot of bad things. Sometimes you have to do, you know, things you never thought you'd have to do, and that all goes home with every single one of us. And people, you know, the saying that they teach you in the academy is like, you need to leave work at work. And I tried that for a very, very long time. I did a good job of it, I think. I did a good job
with that.
Yeah, like, you can't leave everything at work. Like, some of the things that you see, if you do this job long enough, you cannot leave at work. It's impossible. There are scenes that I can recall off the top of my head that will be with me. If I get old and have dementia, I will remember these things. Yeah. And, you know, like, the big thing is just, like, there's, like, just being aware of that, knowing that that's who I am. And, like, this job has changed me, and it's changed me for the good. And it's also gave me a little bit of baggage, and I just have to do the things that I have to do to take care of those. So now, you know, I go see a counselor, which you talked me into.
I'm so proud of you for that.
I don't know. I kind of like it, actually, but
I know you do.
But I get to go see a counselor. I've done EMDR. I've, like, done certain things that take care of my, you know, my mental health and our marriage. You know, working out's huge.
Started cold plunging.
Everybody keeps giving me so much trouble at work, though. They're like, oh, we know Matt started cold plunging. It's like, why? It's like, because that's all you ever talk about.
I know.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry.
It's addicting, though. I know. I feel like I talk about it too much, too. And I'm like, I'm so annoying.
I know.
But it's like, I just want everybody to know how good it is. Yeah. But it's like, but those are things that's like, we want to bring to everybody.
Yeah, they're very practical things that you can do that are going to make your life better, and it's going to make your mental health better. And I think that's what cops want to do. You know, like, cops want very practical ways to make sure that they're okay.
If people take anything from this podcast, this episode, I want them to start cold plunging with their spouses.
Oh, bro, come on.
What?
I don't know.
There's so much that can come from that. Look at us.
If they take anything away from this episode, I hope they take that they should find a culturally competent counselor.
That too.
They should go see them, because it's way more effective than cold plunging.
It'll make them think clearer and better, and they'll be happier, and then they'll get to the point that they're like, oh, I need to go see a counselor. So it all starts with the cold plunging.
Okay, maybe. You're a goofball.
But for, like,
hey,
specifically,
any cold plunging businesses out there, you looking for a sponsor? Hit us up.
But
I'm going to cut that into a reel and post it all over the internet.
Okay. Already done. On it. No, but, like, specifically for the spouses, like, the couples.
Yeah, it's fun to do.
The couples, like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, if there's any couples watching this and you want to take anything from it and you're going to do anything practical with this episode, like, just try cold plunging together, because we have the best time. It's not even, like, the benefits you get from it. Sure, like, that's huge, and we're seeing, like, practical, like, realistic benefits from it. But the time that we spend doing that together is really fun. And
it's just kind of weird, though, because
seeing you get down into your undies and then jump in and jump out because it's too cold is just makes my week.
I think it's hilarious that, like, the weirdest part about it is, since we're on shift work, is, like, sometimes we're out there getting ready to cold plunge at, like, 11 o'clock at night.
Asleep.
Our kids are asleep. The neighbors are probably like, what's wrong with
in
these
the garage,
people?
Working out and then cold plunging, like, freezing our butts off.
People probably think we're weird, but
I want to bring that to all the law enforcement couples out there.
What, cold plunging?
Just spending time together, having a healthy relationship.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
With cold plunging.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think that's all we really need to talk about. You did awesome. I think it's all. You're so nervous.
You did great.
You kicked it out, or you knocked it out of the park.
I can't wait to interview you about your critical incident. Do I get to do that?
I don't know. We'll see.
4 years from now?
No. In a year.
In a year?
Uh-huh.
You only have to wait 2 years?
3.
3?
Yeah. We're almost at year 2.
I'm a little tired right now. I can't think straight.
It's okay. I don't know.
All right.
I was
can't
gonna
wait
have
for
my
that.
counselor do it, but maybe you can't.
Fine.
I don't know. But again, I appreciate you.
Anytime, babe.
You're the best. I'm
Love
so
you.
happy our audience got to see a little bit of who I love so much. So. Thanks for hanging in there till the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed Kate's story. I just want to thank her for some of her time. She's my best friend, and 1078 would not be possible without her. She keeps me in line and makes sure that we continue to serve the officers that we need to serve. I'm so thankful for her. I hope you guys are too. Until next week, I'll see you on the other side, boys.